Okay, great. I can see that it started to slow a little bit, so we will make a proper start on the session. So welcome everybody. Good afternoon, good morning, good night, depending on where you have joined us from this afternoon. I know from some of the earlier sessions, we have had people who've been up at 3 a.m. to join sessions and people who it was definitely close to bedtime for them when they were joined as well. So welcome to all of you, regardless of where you're joining from in the world. My name is Hannah Griffiths. I think I've probably met and spoken to a lot of you already, but for anybody who I haven't met before, I'm one of the recruitment and admissions managers for the Oxford MBA. I work largely in Asia Pacific, and so have the pleasure and privilege of meeting a ton of fascinating and super intelligent people from those parts of the world, and supporting them through their journey to hopefully come and join us at Oxford on the MBA. And I'm delighted this afternoon for this session to be joined by 5 members of our wonderful student body who for the next hour are going to be sharing their insights and experiences of the Oxford MBA with you all. We would like the session to be as interactive as possible. So ideally, we want to get through as many questions from those of you who have joined as we can. So for the first kind of 20-30 minutes of the session, the students are going to introduce themselves. We're going to go through some kind of introductory questions, but we do welcome as many questions as possible from those of you who have joined. Please send those through via the Q&A button on the screen at any point in the session that they pop into your head. There is no such thing as a silly question or an odd question, so send through anything at all that springs to mind, and we will do our very best in the second half of the session to have the students answer as many of the questions as we can. This is a really valuable session, I think, in terms of the virtual experience event. The majority of the sessions will be led by members of the recruitment and admissions team who know a lot about the MBA and know a lot about recruiting students for it, but we're largely moonlighting in terms of our knowledge of the actual MBA experience, and the real experts are now here because the people who do the MBA are the ones who really know the most about it. So do take advantage of that and really try to get the insights and experiences of our wonderful panel who are here today. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Marissa. Do you want to start? I'm just going to ask our panelists in the beginning just to give a brief introduction of themselves, and then we'll start to move through some questions.
Sure, thank you, Hannah. Well, I'm Marisabel Felipa and I'm from Peru. I have 8 years of experience in the cosmetic industry, most of them focused on marketing, specifically in planning and merchandising and pricing. Well, and if you have any questions during the panel or after that, I'm more than happy to help you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Marissa. Clarissa, over to you next.
Yeah, hi. Clarissa Griffiths. Background in strategy and operational consulting, mostly for big industrial companies and their supply chain strategy. And also here with my husband and 2 children. So love to answer lots. You actually have 2 people with family here. So I think lots of questions on that can be answered. Yeah, happy to talk about that or consulting.
Amazing. Thank you very much. Yes, partners and families questions always come up at these sessions. So it's great to have 2 people here who can share some insights on that. Thank you. Taher, over to you next.
Hi, everyone. My name is Taher and I'm from Yemen. I grew up and lived in many other places, but yeah, my background is in project management and IT infrastructure, power plant construction, and oil upstream. So I'm also here with 2 little boys, so with my family, and it's been great. Oxford is lovely, so I'm happy to answer any questions. And I'm recruiting for consulting, so I know some people are, and I'm one of the co-chairs for the consulting OBN. So if you have any questions with consulting, happy to help.
Amazing, thank you very much. Avinash, over to you.
Thank you, Hannah. I'm Avinash. I'm from India. I have no husband, wife, children. I barely manage to take care of myself. I have no idea how my friends here do it. But so I've been in the social entrepreneurship space for the last 8 years. So I'm here as a school scholar. This year, I was working in inclusive education for the last 5 years. And for 3 years before that, in 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 data-driven decision making. So I also happen to be part of the student council here, and I'm a director of the Social Impact Oxford Business Network. So if you have any questions related to social impact, entrepreneurship, any of these pieces, I'd like to do my best in answering them.
Wonderful, thank you. And then finally, Shri, over to you.
Hi everyone, I'm Shui. I'm from Myanmar and my background experience is in family business, focusing on the manufacturing and the retail operations in the fashion and garment industry. And I am one of the co-chair for the family business circle here. So if you have any questions about family business or anything about the Oxford MBA in general, I'm here as well.
Amazing, thank you guys. So hopefully our panel are a really good indication of the level of diversity that you can expect if you do come to join us in September in terms of international diversity, but professional backgrounds as well, which I know you're all aware is something that's very intentional when we're putting the cohorts together at Said. So to start with panel, I thought it'd be good to, if you can cast your minds back to, I guess, almost a year ago now, or a little bit more for some of you, depending when you applied, to when you were sort of trying to make your final decision about which business school you might want to go to for your MBA. I know a lot of people who've joined the session this afternoon are currently in that position and are probably weighing up different aspects of different business school programs and trying to decide. If each of you could just tell a little bit, I guess, about what was the key decision-making factor for you when you came to make your final decision and chose to come to Oxford to pursue your MBA. And that can be in relation to absolutely anything at all that you would like. So Marissa, coming back to you first, anything in particular for you that was kind of sealed the deal in terms of choosing Oxford for your MBA?
There were many things, to be honest. First of all, the 1-year program for me was appealing because I already have 8 years of experience. So for me, it's a 1-year program was the best suit. Then also the Oxford brand, definitely. I was accepted in HSA and Oxford at the same time. And when I was telling my vice president about my options, and she says like, "You are going to accept Oxford, right?" It's like, yes, I'm going to accept Oxford. So the Oxford brand, regardless where you are, I think it's really important. And the other thing, that diversity of the cohort, I think that was one of the main ones. I mean, you can see it right now. From different backgrounds, from different countries, I think I have learned a lot during these years from many of my friends, and I'm really grateful about having chosen Oxford, definitely, for those 3 reasons.
Amazing, thank you very much. Clarissa, coming to you next. Anything that was key to your decision to come to Oxford?
Yeah, I think, and the prospective students here will probably notice a lot of patterns across all of us. I think I would probably echo what Marissa Bell mentioned. For me in particular, it was I had some friends that were in the cohorts previously, and they just talked about the quality of the students that came here from such diversity of backgrounds, being able to really get outside of your kind of your world and your world perspective was really meaningful. The other thing, I think I would, similar to Marissa Bell, like 1-year program, the brand also, I was looking at some other US schools, which would have been great, but I was really looking for the experience in the UK and the brand internationally. But also Oxford is a really, really beautiful place. And it's a really, like, I have really enjoyed just living here in the city, in the town, taking advantage of travel. And I'm sitting at one of our colleges right now that's just beautiful and has a lot of history. And I think that's really inspiring as I reflected on kind of my future career goals.
Amazing. This is we did at the beginning, I did ask Clarissa where she was because I could see she had a lovely backdrop and she did give a little twirl of her camera. So Clarissa, do you want to just show everybody where you are sat currently to join the webinar?
Yes, I'm at our Pembroke College right here. I don't know if you can see that very well. I'm a bit snuck behind a tent, but it's it's beautiful.
Right. Yeah, thank you very much. Just for anybody, I know we have a lot of people who've joined who have managed to visit Oxford before, but for anybody who hasn't, that's some of the beautiful architecture that you'll be able to enjoy if you do come and join us here as a student. Tahir, over to you. Anything that was key for you in your decision making?
Yeah, definitely. And so for me, it was 3 reasons. First, I wanted a 1-year MBA. With that, I applied to the other side. But I didn't apply to INSEAD and LBS, to be honest. Although looking to get into consulting, a lot of people said you should apply to them. But I wanted to go to a university, not a business school, you know? And I think a lot of the colleges, the societies that are at Oxford, unbelievable. You're not going to find it any other place. There's like longevity and aging society, people who are exploring how to, and they're bringing speakers from Silicon Valley and stuff. The politicians, the Oxford Union, there's so many things that you're not going to find at a typical business school. In terms of why I chose Oxford over the other side, aka Cambridge, this program is more international. And for me, coming to Oxford, I want to become a global leader. So although they're also pretty international, Oxford is more international, the class is bigger. From people that I spoke to on both sides, and this was my personal experience, when I was shooting a LinkedIn message to Oxford students that I don't know at all, they were replying to me like 5x times more than the Cambridge students. And for me, that was just an indication of like the culture of the class or the school. So that also played a factor. And just seeing how the colleges, the city, for people that have a family, I found that from conversations that people who brought their family along to Oxford enjoyed it more. So yeah, those are a few reasons. I can go on and on and on, but we'll keep it at that.
Amazing, thank you. Avinash, for you, anything that was key to your decision to come to Oxford?
A lot of the things that I think my friends already talked about, which are diversity, being part of a larger university, right? I think that's a game changer. One big thing for me was the whole university town experience. I did not apply to any universities that were, in a larger city, just because I wanted to come here and feel like, when you're walking across, it's just the student energy, and this really genuinely feels like a place of learning. And there's so much happening all the time. The kind of like what Tahir already attributed to in some way. You probably not heard of half the things that are happening in this space before, and there are experts coming in and talking about it. So you're really at the hub of like legitimately thought leadership, which is really cool, and which is something that I'd heard about before. But for me specifically, with my background, something that was huge was the social impact focus and the School Center and Impact Lab. So I'm a school scholar here, as I mentioned before. So for me, something that was really, really important was knowing how important impact was across the curriculum and across the design of the program, even extracurricular to SBS. And having heard about that from the previous cohorts, so that made it incredibly easy for me to choose and want to come to this the school in particular. So I think that would be one differential point that I would add in that my friends didn't already.
Great, thank you. And finally, Shri, over to you. Anything that hasn't been mentioned already that for you was key to your final decision to come to Oxford?
Yes, of course, like my friends already have mentioned, that 1-year experience at university, a wider university experience. So I'll not add on to those anymore, but one of the key reasons is because of the diversity, and especially in the women in the cohort, and the scholarship that I was awarded. I was very fortunate to get the Leila Scholarship Award. So that is really one of the key reasons for me to choose Oxford as well. And seeing how the school put in effort and witnessing the effort that the school put in to just ensure that we have such amazing cohort where we have 48% women, and this cohort is just really the game changer, at least for me in this experience, because coming from Myanmar, a third world country where gender diversity and equality is still a very much issue that we don't even want to talk about, and coming from that experience to Oxford, where everyone's opinions and values are heard and appreciated, is really a game changer. And I'm really glad I chose Oxford over the other schools that I've applied to.
Amazing, thank you. Yeah, I'm really happy that you flagged that as well. So for anyone who doesn't know, our current cohort is 48% female, which is a leading percentage of European-based business schools. We are working very hard to try to get that a little bit higher for the incoming cohort if we can. Ideally, obviously, we'd like to have a 50-50 split. So our team is doing our very best to try to achieve that for the incoming cohort if possible. I can see that the Q&A box is very quiet, which I'm hoping is just because everybody is listening very intently and they're going to start adding their questions in very shortly that we're going to work through in the second half. So do please feel free to send through questions, guys, if you have them. I want to start talking a little bit next about the curriculum, if we can. I know you guys are in the second half of the Trinity term now, so you have experienced the different types of classes, courses that make up the academic curriculum at SBS. So wanted to ask each of you if there was a particular highlight that you've had inside of the classroom since the start of the MBA. So any particular class, course that you've been involved in, member of faculty that you want to give a shout out to that you've particularly enjoyed since you've come to Said. I've stopped screen sharing, which has mixed you all up on my screen now. So Avinash, I'm going to come to you first this time. Any inside of the classroom highlight that you'd like to share?
Sure. I mean, I wonder how much time I have with this particular question, honestly, but I think it's been very, very cool. So I love the fact that you said inside the classroom. So I'll just start off by giving an example of my class yesterday. So we were learning leadership from the perspective of humanities, and we happened to have the class in the Holywell music rooms, not inside the Said Business School. The Holywell music rooms, which is one of the archetypes of how a music room needs to be designed in the English-speaking world. So our entire classroom was set in that, and we learned about multiple facets or aspects of leadership using music, using a conductor. So we had a live choir join us, and we were put in place as the conductor, having no conducting experience before, and asked to lead this choir through different songs and then understand leadership through that. I think that kind of epitomizes the beautiful opportunities that you have at Oxford, at SBS, to be able to learn very out of the box from very, very different perspectives, right? So that I think was an incredible experience, and that happened yesterday, right? And so over the course of the year, and I'm sure there'd be a bunch of stuff that would stand out, wherein, like, for example, just the first week that we were here, we were given a bunch of Lego bricks, and we were asked to figure out, because this was part of organizational behavior, and we were asked to figure out some sort of team camaraderie and team dynamics by building some sort of a Lego model, but with an information asymmetry among us, right? And we see that with prisoner dilemma pieces, we see that with organizational behavior and across multiple different courses. So I think it's been very, very cool in how, so for example, the other day, we just realized that the sun had come out and the weather was nice outside. And I mean, of all the nice things that we'll talk about, if anyone tells you the British weather is cool, don't listen to them. They're being paid by SBS at that point of time. But so when the sun had come out, the entire classroom said, you know what, the weather's really nice. So we just stepped out and sat in the amphitheater and did an entire session about global sustainable business. So it's these really, really cool opportunities where the professors are, very interactive and trying to really use the environment around us to be able to teach us. And I think that's been, definitely transformational.
Amazing, thank you. Really nice examples. Marisabel, for you, any highlight inside of the classroom?
I think that the focus on impact is really relevant in most of the classes that we have taken. But the one I really love is reputational leadership. It was one of the electives I took in the last block. One of the best classes that I have had until now with Professor Rupert Younger. He was really engaging. The quality of the speakers he brought to the class was amazing. Current MPs, executives from different important brands as Burberry. So regardless of how he taught the class, it was interesting also listening for these speakers, and also trying, for me, for example, it was really important to try to think about out of the box, think about character, about capability of the current leaders that we have all over the world, and what can you do to be a better leader. So for me, it was one of the most amazing classes that I have had.
Great, thank you. Clarissa, for you, inside the classroom highlight.
Marissa Bell stole mine. We were in that class together, and I think it was a really unique class because it was a smaller cohort and everyone was really, really engaged. Well, most of the time, I would say people are engaged, but this one was particularly so. And I also, so maybe I would second that. That was an amazing class. A different highlight. We also have a class called Capitalism and Debate. I really enjoyed that class. One of the things I was looking for from this experience at Oxford was basically practice articulating my own beliefs and then navigating discussions with very diverse perspectives. I think that class was really helpful because so we talked about capitalism in a very global context, right? And that looks very, very different and has very different connotations. And I think being able to just that practice of articulating and then hearing somebody else's very unique experience from their country was really interesting and enlightening for me.
Great, thank you very much. Tahir, for you, inside the classroom highlight.
Sure. So I took negotiations last block, which is apparently the most subscribed elective, very competitive, and I'm biased because my college advisor is actually the professor, Dr. Owen Derbyshire. And honestly, I can definitely see why a lot of people allocate a lot of points for it. I loved that each class was half talking about theory and the other half is actually doing a negotiation simulation. Now, some of you in the call today might come from a negotiations background, and some of you will probably end up in that role directly or indirectly in your careers. So it was really helpful. And I think this is where the diversity of the cohort is really, like, it really shows, because you can tell in different simulations when you're negotiating with someone from North America is very different from someone in Africa that's from Africa or from Asia or from the Middle East or European. So it really, not only are you taught the ways to negotiate, but how to be so agile and culturally aware of the differences. And that really makes you a better leader and manager, hopefully in the future. Yeah.
Amazing, thank you. And Tree, finally for you, a highlight inside of the classroom.
I would say the class that I'm taking right now, which is called The Identification by Mongo Wilson. I am actually having his class later on in like 5 minutes. So the highlight is more of listening through the professor's experiences in debunking the data myths that we always see even in the newspaper, and also the big headliners that we always see that's like trying to catch our attention, but actually it's not. So it's just basically rewiring while we are seeing the data and the real meaning and explanation behind it. So it's very relevant to every one of us in the classroom, because all these days that media is just trying to get our attention with whatever statistics that they can, but actually if we just take a step back and think critically, it's not. So it's just, even though Mongo teaches finance, the class is basically just about just viewing the data in a different way and how to separate causation from correlation. I've only taken one of his class, so I cannot explain much, but I'm learning a lot just by the first 3 hours of his story. So it's definitely one of the highlights so far.
Amazing, thank you. I can see that we start to have some questions come through, so I'm going to start going through these questions now, just so we can make sure we can get through as many of them as we can. And I know some of the students have a very hard stop definitely at 2 p.m. because I know some people are going to be going to class a little bit late. Apologies in advance to faculty. They're not listening to this, but you know, we appreciate your time is what I'm trying to say. Okay, let's go through some of the questions that we have had. Okay, so we've got a question here from Aditi, and this one is for you, Avinash. So Aditi is asking if you could speak a little bit more about the kinds of learning networking opportunities available to folks, particularly focused on social impact, both at SBS as well as across Oxford.
Yeah, I would love to answer that question. And there's actually quite a few opportunities here. Sorry, it's just a bunch of friends who are coming in and trying to take over. So that also one shows you the kind of camaraderie that we have. If at all you see me smiling, it's because a bunch of people are walking past and everyone's saying hi. I think that's one piece that maybe I'd like to just highlight. It's fantastic camaraderie within the cohort. But yeah, answering the question that we have with the social impact piece, I've actually been incredibly impressed after coming here about how social impact is integrated within the curriculum and just the opportunities that you have without to be able to engage and grow. The biggest piece, I think, is the cohort. Honestly, I think there's a huge self-selection that happens with the kind of people that come here to do the MBA at SBS. Literally, there's a person who's written a best-selling book on how to create impact. There's a person who's managed hundreds of $millions of humanitarian aid. There's a human rights lawyer who's worked with the biggest foundations in the world. There are social entrepreneurs, who've just done the most incredible things and added value from scratch. And I have the chance now to call all of these people some of my closest friends. And these are people that I'm learning from on an everyday basis. People who worked in large development organizations to people who've started things from scratch. And just there's an entire gamut that's covered by the cohort. And it's a continuous effort to try and grow and keep learning and teaching each other. So I think the cohort is definitely the biggest piece there, right? In terms of within the curriculum itself, it's been very good to see how even across the cross-cutting pieces, right? If you talk about the more general pieces like marketing or organizational behavior or accounting, stuff that is taught to everyone, there is always an angle of impact that's brought into it. And also conversation around impact is very much entertained, encouraged, and actually the discussions that take place within the class are always at least one or two conversations that are impact focused, right? Whether it's ESG, whether it's gender equity, whether it's accessibility, whether it's income inequality, any of these pieces or beyond. We try and bring in at least one of those lenses to each of the conversations that's happening, no matter what that subject is. And to be more specific, if you just look at the electives that are available, I'm sure you'd have an entire list, and your curriculum might be slightly different from ours, right? Whether it's global sustainable business, circular regenerative economy, etc. But at the same time, we had core modules such as global opportunities and threats, which were all finance related, but at the same time, all systems thinking and impact related at the same time. Capitalism and debate that I think someone had already mentioned before, wherein when we were talking about capitalism, but we were talking about how potentially we would try and change that entire system, or what flaws we find in that system, and really made us think, right? So all of these pieces, and I would like to especially give a shout out to a couple of pieces, which is Impact Lab. I know a bunch of people who are focused on impact would look at Impact Lab as a great opportunity, and it's an incredible learning experience. But also keep in mind that it is limited entry when you come in, so you still have to apply to be able to get in, and 25 people each cohort or each term are selected. So it's fantastic, but at the same time, also keep in mind that it's something that's slightly exclusive. But having said that, though, the Skoll Center and specifically the Social Impact OBN this year have worked super hard to make sure that impact stuff is as accessible to everyone as possible. So everything that's happening at Impact Lab, we try and make sure that everybody else also has access to it. And the Skoll Center in general gives you access to the Skoll Fellows, any faculty, any visiting professors. It's just one email away. And on top of that, we had something, Kate Roberts' Donut Economics. I don't know how many of you are familiar with it, but it's new frontier economics that keeps the planet and humanity at the forefront and not, supply and demand. And that happened right at SBS. So we had an entire course. We got a certification done from the absolute pioneer of that, and SBS took care of all of that. So there are so many options to be able to engage, and so many directions that you can go in. I genuinely am incredibly impressed, and I think I made the right choice having Karan. And I'm saying this as typically a slightly cynical person about stuff like this, right? So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Amazing. Thank you, Avinash. Thank you everyone for sending questions. We've got some really good ones coming in now. So good question here from Hanisha. Feel free just to unmute, guys, for anybody who's happy to answer any of these as I read them out. So Hanisha is asking, is there anything you would have done differently or more of if you could replay your Michaelmas term experience again? Or a top piece of advice for incoming SBS students? Anybody who would change anything, do anything differently about Michaelmas?
I can take that. So
yeah.
I think in Michaelmas, in the first block, a lot of us didn't, finish our bachelor's years ago. So we're a bit nervous of like, okay, am I overthinking it? Am I underthinking it? So how much work needs to go into assignments and so on? This is very honest advice. There's people that are doing a 1+1. Speak to them. They already have the formula of what's needed for assignments and like how to navigate. Also, okay, this is enough if you want to get distinction. This is enough if you're just looking to really learn and not really going for distinction. So I think those are a helpful resource, because otherwise you're going to spend a lot of time in Michaelmas really planning your essays, and then you find out that you did a lot of unnecessary work, or the complete opposite end of the spectrum. So if I can go back in time, that's what I would do.
That's very helpful advice, I think. Anybody else have anything they want to throw in there about something they would have done differently, or advice about Michaelmas?
I think I can jump into that too. For me, I tried to take it slowly, but I think I took it too slowly. So trying to figure out what is outside, regardless SBS or even in SBS, with your college, with the societies that are involved in the Oxford community. From day one, it will be really important, because here in Oxford, you only have 3 terms, Michaelmas, Hilary, and Trinity. And summer, actually, everything is closed here. So knowing what would happen since day one and try to choose whatever appeals to you, I think that I would have done that, definitely. I need to redo my MBA again.
Amazing. Thank you, Maricel. Clarissa, jump in.
One thing on the social aspect, one thing that someone in our class, at least I think a few people maybe, but they organized these small dinner groups, and I thought that was one of the coolest things that we did socially in Michaelmas term. They had 6 to 8 people, and just a cozy dinner is what they called it, and it was a really powerful way to get to know everybody and their unique story when the social aspect can be kind of overwhelming when you first hit the ground.
That's really lovely. Yes, so hopefully there's somebody listening in here who's going to be happy to take that task on if they join the cohort next year. Okay, good question here as well about the summer semester, which Maricel and I were just discussing a little bit offline before we started the webinar. So someone is asking, can you talk a bit more about what you and your peers are planning to do during the summer? Would you recommend staying in Oxford for the summer or going elsewhere for internships? So I'm sure you guys are probably doing a mixed bag. Anybody want to share any thoughts on the summer semester, and I guess how to choose what to give your time to then?
I can take on the answer. I am doing an internship, but it's a hybrid. So I can choose either to go into office for 5 days a week, 2-3 days a week. It's up to me. So of course I choose to do 2 to 3 days a week, just because now that the weather is so much better, I don't want to leave Oxford. If you ask me in Hilary term, I think I would be like, I am going somewhere, I am traveling. But now that the weather is so much better with the sun outside and the sun sets late, there are so much activities that you can do. So I would really, really encourage, if you can find a remote hybrid internship, go for it and just enjoy this Oxford summer, because you really only have a few months. And I'm sure everyone here can agree that time flies by so fast. And if you just now you're mentioning Michaelmas, I was just thinking, I felt like it was 2 months ago, but it's actually more than 6 months ago. So just really treasure whatever you have, whatever time you have in Oxford, because it really doesn't come back for a lot of people. So yeah.
Amazing, thank you. Yeah, it's really good advice. The year does go super quickly, is the feedback that students and alumni always give. Avinash, you wanted to jump in?
Yeah, just a very quick point. I agree with everything that Shweta said. I'm taking electives, but for very much the same reason about trying to get the most out of Oxford. I think one key point here is life in Oxford as a student and life in Oxford as not a student are like chalk and cheese. Like, I mean, day and night rather, right? Because of just having that board card, it's called the board card. It's the ID card that you have that gives you access to places. Just having that just opens up the entire town for you. So as long as you have that board card, I feel like, at least it's my opinion, that you want to try and make the most out of everything that Oxford gives you, including student discounts at pubs, right? I feel like it's one of those things, if it's an internship or if it's an elective, I personally, since it's just a one-year program, and as Shweta mentioned, the time goes past so quick, I wanted to maximize my time here, because of which I chose electives. And even if I get something remote, I will work alongside it, but while taking as much as I can out of Oxford. But if there's anyone with a different perspective, I think that would be great to hear as well.
Great, thank you. And I was going to ask Marcel, do you want to jump in? Because then we have the full set
The
for
three,
the summer
yes.
semester.
Actually, I'm taking the consultancy project. It was in my plans. I was about to take the electives, but in my case, I wanted to learn a little bit more about the European market because I come from Latin America. I know a lot about Latin America, but not of the European market. And I'm going back to Latin America. So for me I need to learn this, and this was the opportunity to do this. So I'm doing the consultancy project with a sportswear brand based in Paris, and we will help them to set that development plan for their expansion in Europe. So it will be really interesting. And I'm staying in Oxford too for the whole 2 months. So according to my friends, that's why also I wanted to do this, because I wanted to experience Oxford, but also I wanted to learn from a European company, and the consultancy project gave me the chance.
Amazing, thank you. So we've got the full set for the summer semester there for what everybody can do. That's great. We've got a lot of questions coming in that are, I guess, sort of focused on consulting hiring and like structured hiring, etc. Some of them are very specific and I think would probably be better to be answered by members of our careers team in terms of like hiring splits and things like that. There is one specifically, Tahir, that's directed at you. Someone who's asking that because of applying in round 4, they've missed out for pre-MBA registrations with MBB, and asking, I guess, if they've lost out on their chance to get an interview networking opportunities with these firms, how can they increase their chances from this point onwards? I don't know if you feel like you could give some guidance on that.
Yeah, no, thank you for the question. So no, you didn't lose on your chance of getting into MBB. So what I would ask for you to do, there's a group created by James Nugent, who's head of the consulting careers team, for the incoming cohort that are looking to get into consulting. Please join that. We, myself, the other co-chairs, people who did not come from consulting that were able to get into consulting, we're going to be hosting sessions, basically telling you what to do, what you should do beforehand. We really, my aim and the whole team's aim is to get you as prepared as possible, because we want you to be ready by the time September starts. By the time October starts, we want you to be ready. I don't want you to start really, whoever is looking to get into consulting, you need to do some work before you get to Oxford, and we will dedicate as much time as you need. So please message me on LinkedIn. Please message anyone else that you know from that is a part of the consulting OBN, and we will help you prepare so that by October you are ready to be challenging other people from business schools. So we're all here for you, but yeah, join the group on LinkedIn, and then we can have this conversation offline. Feel free to message me on LinkedIn.
Amazing, thank you. That's really helpful advice. We've got a good question here that's very focused, I guess, on like the academic delivery of the MBA, that some of you might be able to answer some questions. So it's got 3 parts to it. So the first one is, are the subjects taught in a theoretical manner, or do you feel the teaching is applicable to business? Anybody want to jump in on that? Gonna go, Avinash?
Sure, and I'll just kick off, and I'm sure people will join in. But I mean, it depends what you mean when you say theoretical. At the end of the day, I think one of the great things also is the fact that in European business schools, and I think the average age in our batch is about 29, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
So automatically that means a lot of people are coming in with at least about 4 years work experience. So it's difficult to keep it theoretical because there's always going to be people pitching in and talking about things relevant to what they've already seen. It also will vary course to course, but at the end of the day, I do not remember a single class where there wasn't a case or there wasn't a live example. I think there would be very, very, very few courses that would be incredibly theoretical. And I would love for people here to step in because I'm sure we've had different structures within our courses. But there's always been cases, there's always been discussions that are very relevant to industry today or going forward, and the application of whatever course within that. If there's something like microeconomics, for example, right, that perhaps would be a little more theoretical, say. But at the same time, if there's something like organizational behavior, then you're talking about a live case and an example where we're looking at what would you do in such a situation if you were a Tahir and you had to fire someone from your organization, right? Which Tahir wouldn't do given how nice he is. But so I think it really depends on the kind of course that's there. But I would largely lean towards it being very practical, both because of the way it's designed and also because of the cohort themselves and the incredibly diverse background that they bring to the table.
Great, thank you. Second part of the question is, are modern topics like fintech, e-commerce, Web3, etc. included in the lectures? I mean, there are some classes that are specifically focused on those areas, aren't there?
I can take on that answer. Of course, definitely, they are always mentioned, and a lot of our classmates are always engaging with the professors to ask about what are the views, and people who are in the industry or who are interested in the industry would always jump in to share. So it's a lot from learning. It's about learning from each other as well. So before ChatGPT break loose on the internet, I remember inside one of our marketing classes, our marketing prof was asking us to play around with the ChatGPT, all this tools to create a marketing campaign. That is also one of the highlights that I forgot to mention inside the class, which is very encouraging to see that the professors are very much ahead of the trend and just trying to incorporate all these very fast technological changes that are happening around the world, and just make sure that we as a cohort are able to stay relevant to whatever the new technologies are there.
Wonderful.
Could I add one more experience to that? So also, like, very honestly, I think not all classes are made equal. And one of the challenges that we have is like coming in with such a, like we mentioned, like very different backgrounds. Sometimes like a class might be really boring for you because you already have expertise in this area, and then not so much for others. Although I hear that they're changing a bit for your incoming class, that you might have some of that material moved before you come to school. But on the tech piece, this person asked, one class I'm taking that's really cool right now is a machine learning class where the first half is, I think it's new this year. The first half is concepts and really interesting. The professor does machine learning models for and research for in like health industry. So she talks about different types of AI and specifically machine learning. And then the second half, we actually are coding, and our final project is like delivering like a Python code and interpreting that. So there's also some more technical classes if you in the electives portion.
Amazing, thank you guys.
Quick
question. Oh, sorry,
sorry.
Go on.
No, I just wanted to add that even if you don't find something in one of the classes, I think that SBS and Oxford give you the chance to explore. For example, there is a fintech club. Some of us are going to Viva Tech next week, which is a tech conference. So you will always have the chance to learn not only in classes, but enormous kind of activities that SBS and Oxford can offer you.
Amazing. Thank you, guys. Question here in relation to bringing family. I know this was something we talked about in the beginning. So a question here from John. John will be coming to Oxford with his family. What could their experience be like while he's studying in the MBA program, and asking, how do you guys balance family life with your academic work?
How many kids do you have, John?
John, can you tell us how many kids you have in the chat?
I'll just start off by saying, okay, so it's not easy at all, because there's academics, there's social life. For example, besides the academics, I'm recruiting into consulting, which is time consuming. Co-chair of the OBN, also time consuming. I was also on the Oxford Blues football team, which is time consuming. So, and then there is networking, getting to know the cohort. So you really need to be organized in your time, dedicate time for family. The good thing is that it is a year. It's a 1-year MBA, technically 9 months, because the summer is very open. I'm personally not doing an internship in the summer. I'm looking forward to spending a lot of time with my family, because I've been very busy for the last 9 months. We're going to be traveling around for a month or so, and then taking electives for the 2 blocks. So it's definitely doable. The good thing about Oxford is that it's beautiful. There's so many parks. There's if you have a car, there's zoos nearby. You can go to London. The trains take you everywhere if there are no strikes. So you'll make a lot of good memories with your family here.
Thank you. Clarissa, do you want to add anything on that?
Yeah, and I saw, John, it looks like you have one on the way. Congratulations. So that's super exciting. I would say, first off, I think there's at least 20 parents in our cohort. Not all of them actually brought their kids with them. So it's really interesting to see there's a lot of different models, I would say. If you have questions about childcare, I could have a really long discussion with you offline. Please reach out. The other thing I would say about a family, there are several, check out the Oxford Newcomers Club. I don't know if your partner is going, and that's for anyone who's bringing a partner. If they're not, I don't know what your partner's doing, if they're working or doing something else, but there are certain communities like that where they really specifically reach out to partners and try to provide a community for them. That in your college sometimes as well. So it's been great. My family's loved it. The schools here are really nice. Lots of outdoor activities that are family friendly. So yeah.
Amazing. Thank you, guys. Question here from Canan. I don't know if anyone has done this. So Canan's asking, did any of you audit classes outside of SBS to make the most of the Oxford collegiate system? Or if any of you didn't, do you know of anyone in the cohort who's done that this year?
I mean, so an example that we'd like to give is the Donut Economics Action Lab, right? Direct classes, I'm not familiar with anyone going, to be very honest with you. Whether it's just sitting and auditing, one is just the time in itself. So I'm not sure if it's the best use of your time, and that's something that you can evaluate for yourself. But I mean, however, we have a bunch of opportunities, like let's say with the Oxford Character Project, there's the Global Leadership Initiative, with what I had earlier mentioned, the Donut Economics Action Lab with K-Travels, right? So these are all opportunities that you get as being part of the Oxford University. That's not necessarily directly tied to SBS, but because we're SBS students, we have access to. And therefore, there are a bunch of people who've done these courses and certifications, etc. So I feel like in principle, it ties into your question in terms of, yes, there are opportunities that we've taken advantage of that are outside, say, strictly SBS per se. But whether it's necessarily just sitting in a classroom, I'm not sure that's something that anyone I know does actively and on a regular basis. If anybody else knows anyone, please correct me.
Yeah, I think that it's something that often people ask about before coming, and I know it is an option, but it's like you said, it's once you're actually on the MBA and there's so many things going on, it maybe is something that kind of falls by the wayside a little bit because you're getting involved in so many other things. Anybody here who did the finance lab? No. Oh, that's unusual. Normally we have at least one person, and we do have a specific question about that. Whoever the person who sent it in is anonymous, but if you want to reach out just to the recruitment and admissions team, we can connect you with somebody who did do the finance lab this year, and you can ask them the questions that you have about that. Good question here. So it says, considering the numerous co-curricular and extracurricular activities at SBS, how many should one be part of for a good balance, and which ones would you recommend? I'm sure you're all going to recommend completely different ones depending on your interests, but in terms of like the balance and working out how many things that you can give your time to outside of the classroom, anybody have any insights on that?
I think it depends. Like this, maybe we talked before, Hannah, about like what surprised you. I think one thing that surprised me was just how busy and how many things were going on, and how I thought I knew what I wanted coming in, and I had like a really clear goal, and that was really, really tested. So I think it just, classic consulting answer, depends on what you're looking for. For me, so we have this like kind of categorization of people coming in as an accelerator, an explorer, or a transitioner. I am currently an accelerator and long-term kind of exploring long-term options. So that kind of framework helped me know that there were specific skills that I wanted to accelerate. So I really leaned into those specific academics, and then honestly like deprioritize the skills that I felt like I already had and the classes I had, and then filled that time with like the social aspect, because just learning and networking with my peers was really important. So hopefully that's helpful.
Really helpful.
Yes, I agree with Clarissa in that term. For example, in my case, I've been focusing, I'm not transitioner, I'm pivoting into consulting. So I already had that offer, and it gave me more time to actually explore a little bit more about my other and another kind of subjects. I'm co-chair right now of the Luxury and Marketing Club, so I've been dedicating most of my time to trying to find a network and to set some events. So for me, was that I'm part of the GLI project because I wanted to improve my leadership skills. So also that has taken a kind of time. And then you have another societies, the wine society, the sports society. So you try to balance a little bit more with academics and with socials, and with sports also. So to figure out what you want in terms of which is the correct balance, it will depend definitely on you.
Great, thank you. Anyone else want to jump in? No, good. I hope it's clear just from the responses that you guys have given earlier that it is possible to do a lot. Like I know, Tara, when you were answering the question there about like your family and how you balance the time, you've managed to squeeze a lot of stuff outside of the classroom in as well. So I think a lot of it is down to the individual sometimes. But yeah, really good advice there about how to get that balance. This is a good question, I guess, in terms of preparation in advance of coming to the MBA. So someone is asking, for those of us who have had a professional experience, but not necessarily primarily in business, what tips would you have in order to be at ease with core business subjects like finance, accounting, or analytics? Anybody have any advice for maybe what someone could do in advance of coming to the MBA to help them feel a little bit more prepared for those? No, I think that means that you'll be fine.
Okay. Marissa, please take it. I think you're more in tune with that line of thinking than I am.
No, I think that actually the classes, I mean, I didn't prepare. I came from business, but still my business perspective was focused on marketing for many, many years. Yes, a little bit of finance, but that was it. But I think the classes, one, were so engaging, and two, the professors actually offer us time to go through the classes. So what I would say is try to enjoy the last months that you have at home. Sure, come with certain idea of what you want to do here. But still, I think the SBS community, the professors are going to help you go through the classes and to succeed at the classes. So that would be my recommendation, to be honest. But I don't know you, Abby.
I will challenge that actually for a bit. In that I know quite a few people who aren't familiar, say, with at least say finance, right? When business finance was a course initially, I'm rubbish at finance as well. So I knew it was a little challenging. And at least the advantage that I had was I had come from a maths background. As an Indian male, we all do engineering. So I was able to, because of my engineering background, understand at least the quant heavy side of things, and that wasn't necessarily a problem for me. So at the very least, without any idea about what your professional background is like, I'd suggest that you could probably brush up a little bit. If you're concerned about the finance analytics side of things, maybe brush up a little bit on your maths. And that should be able to help you then focus on just the concepts and not necessarily spend too much time on the math here, because as much as Marcibel is right about the fact that you will have opportunities here with the professors giving you time, etc., there's just so much happening because the one-year MBA is so compressed that you might still find it difficult to be able to make time just purely for the academic side of things, right? If you come in and say, you know what, I will not do anything else but study, then you need not come in with any preparation. But let's be realistic, that's not going to happen. There's going to be a bunch of other stuff that you're going to take up, because of which, you're going to really find it difficult to be able to allot time, say for pre-prep during break for a class that you're taking next term, say. So unless you're that incredibly diligent, hardworking, and just absolutely focused, I'd suggest, if math isn't your strong point, then maybe that's something that you can brush up on before coming here, and that will help you through some of the courses that you mentioned.
Really helpful. Thank you, guys. I'm mindful of time, and I know, as I said, some of our students have had to leave and go to class, and some definitely do need to leave to go to class as soon as possible after we end the session. We'll just do one final question here from Aditi, which I guess is largely just around and helpful to finish up the session, advice that you would give to anybody who will be coming. So she specifically asks, academics versus experiences, what is your advice? Which we touched a little bit. She also asked, is there any must do or any regrets that you would share based on your experience so far? So I guess just to round up, any advice that you would give to those who have joined us today about their MBA experience, whether that's academics versus experience, or just anything that I guess you maybe wish you'd known before you joined the MBA last September.
I can go if and then everyone will follow. This might sound generic, cliched, whatever. It's a one-year program, right? So one, in terms of academic versus experience, my personal perspective is both are equally important, or I would actually lean towards experience, right? But at the end of the day, it depends. It all boils down to what you're doing this for. And therefore, my advice would be, and something, if it's a regret, as such, regrets we don't have time for in this call. So at this point of time, if I could go back and do something better, would be establishing a North Star for myself as I came in, and then checking in with that regularly, whether, I am actually staying on track. However, that's not to say coming in with an incredibly rigid mindset. As Clarissa said, you will be tested with, the kind of idea that you came in with. But I guess that's the whole point of coming into an experience like this, is for your preconceived notions, your existing idea of the world and yourself to be tested. So you need to come in with a North Star that is refined enough that you're not really moving away completely, but also broad enough that you're able to give yourself room for improvement and growth. So I think that would be my biggest advice. What are you doing this for? Why are you in this? Write that down somewhere and then visit it, I think, regularly, so as to ensure that you're kind of staying on track, but also understanding how you're growing within that framework.
Amazing. I think that's really nice advice and useful advice to finish up the session on. Thank you so much to everybody who sent through questions. I'm sorry that we haven't been able to get through all of them. I know some of our students have been typing answers in the background as well, which has been hugely helpful. Thank you, guys. Anybody who has outstanding questions, do reach out to our team and the recruitment admissions team. If we can't get the answers for you, then we can reach out to these guys and ask them to provide some information for you for anything that we didn't get to today. A huge thank you to our students who have joined us. The one thing I hope you have gotten a sense of is that they are incredibly busy individuals, and so we are very grateful to have had their time this afternoon, and to them all for sharing their experiences with all of you. Thank you all to those of you who joined us as well for the session. We hope that you found it useful, and that you'll be joining us for some of the remaining sessions that we have in the coming days as well. So for now, we will say goodbye to you all, and we'll look forward to seeing you at one of the sessions that we have in the coming days. Thank you, guys.